Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the key on millions.co. Here is my profile. Here's my profile. Here is my media feed from all of the different segments, sound bites, and clips that I've done over the past week or so. Here is my merchandise store. You can go on the millions.co website, create you an account, and you can buy some keys to the road apparel. Only thing that you have to do is create you an account, go up under my profile, which is the key, head to my merchandise store, and you can purchase some keys to the road apparel. And for people, first time viewers, this is our brand new logo, part of our rebrand. So when you buy a piece of clothing with keys to the road on it, you will see this logo right here. So let's get to the topic at hand. And it was game 6 of the Western Conference Finals last night that ended up in a Texas beatdown for the Oklahoma City Thunder. What I'm going to do is give you all a reaction from game 6, and I'm going to give you a game 7 preview in the second half of this segment. But as of right now, I am going to talk about game 6. Now, game 6 last night, I kind of figured that the Spurs would have that protect home court mentality that they've had all season. And it was on full display last night because in the first few minutes, Oklahoma City, they looked just a little bit sluggish. They did. They looked a little bit sluggish. And I hate to say it, but do Oklahoma City have some road woes? Because they haven't been able to win multiple playoff games on the road in the last couple of years. And this happened even before they won the championship. The year before last, it happened then. Now, I'm trying to figure out. Now, if you want to become a championship team, you are going to have to win multiple games on the road because you don't want to be playing a game 7 in every series. The Thunder, they played 2 game 7s last season against the Pacers, and against the Nuggets. Obviously, they went on to win the championship because in that game 7, they won over the Indiana Pacers. But as of last night, we all can see that the efficiency for the Thunder, was off. Hartenstein had 10 points. Chet Holmgren had 10 points. Shea Gilders-Alexander had 15 points. Lugas Dort had 5, and Jared McCain had 13. You didn't get any contributions from your bench production if you are the Thunder. And I just think that the Thunder, they pretty much threw in the towel after the third quarter because Thunder, they allowed over 30 points in the third quarter, and the league got so much to as far as 25 points. And then they started pulling out their starters. So this is why you work so hard through the regular season to get game 7 on your home floor. So you could have that crowd energy, but there have been the last few times where home court advantage doesn't really mean that much in a game 7. It seems like the last few times, because even in these playoffs, Cavaliers and the Pistons, they had a game 7 just a few days ago, about 5-6 days ago, and that didn't even hold any weight because the Pistons were out of it after the third quarter. Well, at halftime they were out of it, and then the Cavaliers, they did a coronation of it in the third and fourth quarter. And basically, to translate this back to the Spurs from last night, it was just the momentum. They just came out with overwhelming momentum. They were leading by 13 at the end of the first quarter, and also they were leading at halftime. Now, one thing about this, in this series, home court advantage has meant a lot, but we haven't had a game in this series that comes down to a last second shot. We haven't had that much in this series at all. Because before the last few minutes, it's always a team that is up by at least 7 or 8 points. As you look at the Spurs last night, you had Julian Champagne with 10 points. Victor Wembanyama, 28 points in 28 minutes. He was very efficient last night. De'Aaron Fox, he played 26 minutes, only had 5 points. Devin Vassell had 12. Stephon Castle had 17. And then you see bench production contributions, not much, but the Spurs, they had this firmly in hand for the majority of the game. You look at team statistics and you can see where the blowout happened, because the Thunder, they were 10 of 40 from the three-point line. The Spurs, they were 15 of 41 from the three-point line. The Thunder, they did not get to the free throw line as much as in previous games. And that is one way that the Spurs have won these 3 games in this series. Keeping the Thunder off the foul line, keeping SGA off the foul line. And also when it comes to rebounds, in the games that the Spurs have won, they have had 15 plus rebounds. That's their advantage in every game that they've won in this series. Last night, they were plus 11 in total rebounds. They were plus 10 in total rebounds. Now, defensive rebounds, they were plus 11. Then we get the total turnovers. Both teams had the same amount of turnovers. Points in the paint, +6 for San Antonio. Fouls, pretty much Thunder, they had more fouls called on them. And the largest lead in this game, like I said, was 25, but officially it was 28, and the Thunder did not lead in this game at all. So that is my reaction for Game 6. Let's go ahead and get to Game 7. Now, the so-called experts have already put in their predictions for Game 7. I put in my prediction for Game 7 at the start of this series, and I said Thunder in 7. But let's look at what some of these so-called experts have in store. So, Game 7 is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. You all see that. And we get to the 2026 NBA Playoff Spurs Thunder Game 6 recap and Game 7 preview. The San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals. Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs facing elimination in Game 6 in San Antonio took down the defending champions 118-91, with Wembanyama leading the way with 28 points and 10 rebounds in just 28 minutes. So a double-double. The Thunder star Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, meanwhile, struggled shooting 6 of 18 and putting up just 15 points. Oklahoma City was minus 28 in Gilgeous-Alexander's 28 minutes on the floor. The Thunder, they are experiencing road woes, and they are experiencing that they're not able to execute on the road. Execution is down when they are on the road, but execution is high when they are at home. The Spurs and Thunder will play Game 7 on Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, NBC/Peacock in Oklahoma City, with the winner taking on the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals. If the Spurs win, they'd make their first finals appearance since 2014, 12 years ago. If the Thunder win, they'd become the first team to reach consecutive finals since the Golden State Warriors made 5 straight from 2015 to 2019. This is now the first conference finals Game 7 between top 3 MVP finishers Wembanyama and Gilgeous Alexander since Larry Bird and Julius Erving in 1982. ESPN analysts Ben Glover and Zach Cram break down what happened in Game 6 and look ahead to Game 7. So this is what I was saying. The so-called experts, they are looking at what happened last night and translating it to what is going to happen in Game 7. So this is what Zach Cram said. The Spurs don't typically run their offense through the three-point line, but came out firing from deep in Game 6. 14 of their 23 first quarter field goal attempts were three-point attempts, were threes. And through the three quarters, exactly half of their attempts, 33 of 66, came from distance. Early makes from Wembanyama and Devin Vassell helped open up San Antonio's offense and prevent the Thunder from ever taking a lead in Game 6. And then Ben Glover says, what surprised you least about Game 6? Glover says, Wembanyama big response after going scoreless in the first 8 minutes of San Antonio's Game 5 loss and skipping out on his post-game interview. A refocus, Wembanyama pulled up to the arena in a high robe and got straight to work. The 2026 Defensive Player of the Year scored 11 of his game-high 28 points in the first quarter and exceeded the 20 points he scored in Game 5 by halftime. With Wembanyama back to dominating, San Antonio blew Oklahoma City off the court in the third quarter with a 20-0 run to cruise to a wire-to-wire win. What stats stick out from Game 6? I've already told you what stats sticks out from my point of view. Now I'm going to give you all the expert and analyst point of view that work at ESPN. Glover, Gilgeous Alexander still can't buy a bucket with the memorable exception of a feathery baseline jumper over Wembanyama in the third. The back-to-back MVP spent most of Game 6 looking annoyed with his subpar play. After shooting a career-best 60.2% on two-point attempts during the regular season, Gilgeous Alexander is hitting just 40.9% of those shots in the Western Conference Finals and has shot 40% or worse from the field in 5 of the 6 games. What's more, Gilgeous Alexander, an automatic scorer who has topped 20 points in 140 straight regular season games and counting, has failed to crack 20 points twice in the past 3 games. Cram says Dylan Harper averaged 14.7 points per game in the second round and scored 24 points in Game 1 of the conference finals. But while dealing with a right abductor injury, he had scored just 18 points total in Game 3 through Game 5 in this series. So it was a huge bonus for the San Antonio Spurs that Harper was back in form last night, scoring 18 points on 6 for 9 shooting with a plus 18 differential in 22 minutes. Gilgeous Alexander was ineffective in Game 6. Can the Thunder win Game 7 if he isn't the best player on the floor? And what I am going to say is it is going to be tough because we know that SGA is the driving force for the Oklahoma City, and he has been ever since he stepped foot in Oklahoma City just 4 years ago. Glover says, Oklahoma City unsung heroes have done more than their fair share in this series, but it's time for Gilgeous Alexander to start playing like the MVP. Although he has been mired in a shooting slump, the Western Conference Finals, he came up big in 2 Game 7 wins at home last season. In the second round, he scored a game-high 35 points to outduel Nikola Jokic and knock out the Denver Nuggets. And after Tyrese Halliburton was injured in the last game of the finals, Gilgeous-Alexander brought home the title with a game-high 29 points and 12 assists. Cram says role players and schemes and strategic adjustments matter, but times playoff basketball reduces down to a battle between stars. In this series, the Thunder are 3-0 when Gilgeous-Alexander scores at least as many points as Wembanyama, while the Spurs are 3-0 when Wembanyama outscores the two-time MVP. It's reasonable to expect that trend to continue in Game 7. Who is the biggest X factor in Game 7? For me, for what I am going to say is Chet Holmgren is the biggest X factor for the Oklahoma City Thunder, along with Jalen Williams. Now, I know he has a nagging injury, but this is Game 7. You can't miss a Game 7. This is possibly the last game of the season. If you don't win this game, your season is over with. So I'm going to get back to what the two experts have said. Glover, the Spurs were able to generate enough offense in the past two home wins despite De'Aaron Fox underwhelming play, but they will need their most experienced guard to rise to the moment on the road. Fox missed the first two games of the West Finals with an ankle injury and hasn't looked fully healthy at any point of this series. The two-time All-Star has played in one previous Game 7, scoring 16 points on 5 of 19 shooting for the Sacramento Kings in a 2023 first-round loss to the Golden State Warriors. Cram, Jalen Williams made a surprising return from a hamstring strain in Game 6, yet didn't make an impact in 10 minutes off the bench. Williams went 0 for 1 from the floor and scored just 1 point while committing 2 turnovers. The Thunder were outscored by 18 in his brief time on the court. But Oklahoma City's biggest problem isn't in its losses has been a lack of offensive oomph. Can Williams help generate more points in Game 7 when the Spurs shade their defense toward Gilgeous-Alexander? The Thunder will win Game 7 if, this is a big if, Cram states that their experience shines through. The Spurs have never looked cowed by the moment in this postseason, but Game 7s offer newly heightened stakes. They tend to be tighter and tenser and lower scoring than the average playoff game. And we all know that. With 2 Game 7 wins last postseason, Oklahoma City knows how to handle those circumstances. The inexperienced Spurs seizing a Game 7 win on the road over the defending champs would be a monumental but achievable feat. The Spurs will win Game 7 if Glover states that Wembanyama continues to outplay Gilgeous-Alexander. Their hot perimeter shooting travels and their guards take better care of the basketball. Still, this is a tall order. Oklahoma City is 6-1 at home during the 2026 NBA playoffs after going 11-2 at home during last year's title run. Remarkably, the Thunder only loss this year came in double overtime in Game 1 against the Spurs in this series, and their 2 losses were both on last-second shots. Getting the chance to host a Game 7 at Paycom Center is why Oklahoma City never let its foot off the gas during the regular season, despite a long list of injuries to key players. Spurs coach Mitch Johnson should remind his young team that it dealt with the Thunder one of their 7 home losses during the regular season. So that's pretty much what Game 7 And the preview for Game 7 is going to be, now for me, y'all already know how I feel about a Game 7. Game 7 is pretty much do or die, win or go home. You have to strike while the iron is hot, and you have to produce when those critical moments and those threshold moments happen in a Game 7, because they are destined to happen. So what I got to say for a Game 7 is throw out all the X's and O's. It's about how well you can stop your opponent consistently and create turnovers. I am not going to say anything else. If the coaches, if they need to rile up their players for a Game 7, then they must not want it bad enough. They must not be passionate about getting to winning a Game 7 and getting to the NBA Finals. Now, for the Spurs, this will be their first NBA Finals in 12 years. And everybody on the Spurs team, including the head coach, this will be their very first finals in their career. With the Oklahoma City Thunder, this will be their second consecutive NBA Finals. And everybody has experience on the OKC Thunder. They know what it takes. And I expect the more experienced team to win this game. But I expect this game, Game 7, to come down to a last second shot, because we haven't had a game in this series that has come down to a last second shot yet. We haven't. And let me tell you, credit, this series has been a very competitive series, regardless of what the last 3 to 4 minutes of the fourth quarter of each game has been like. It has been one of, dare I say, one of the greatest Western Conference series in NBA history. I'm willing to go as far as that. I thought that OKC and Golden State back in 2016 was great, but this is downright more awesome than that series. So now I got Game 7. I got the Thunder winning Game 7. I told you all, Thunder in 7. I am not on the fence about this pick. I believe that the New York Knicks will face the Oklahoma City Thunder, but make no mistake about it, the future outlook for the Spurs is very bright. I would not be surprised if the Spurs are back in this situation next season, or at least the Western Conference, being in the Western Conference Finals again. But we are in the midst of looking at a dynasty with the OKC Thunder, and we may be in the midst of looking at a potential dynasty with the Spurs, because we know the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, they are going to have some dynastic years in the future. And yes, I know I just used the word dynastic. It is an actual word. So if you all want to verify that word, look at it on Google or whatever you look at when it comes to AI or whatever. But the word is dynastic. This is about both of these Western Conference foes. The word is dynastic. The Spurs fan base, your word for tomorrow is dynastic. You can potentially be a dynastic team if you win Game 7. And for the Thunder, if you win Game 7, we already know that you are the favorite to repeat and create a dynasty. So a dynasty is going to be in the making for one of these teams. Game 7 is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And that is my reaction from Game 6 of last night's Western Conference Finals between the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and my Game 7 preview for the Spurs and the Thunder. And it is going to be a wonderful game. It is going to be a close, tight-knit game. And we are going to be on the edge of our seats. Every sports viewer in the world will be on the edge of their seats. So please like, comment, and with that, those are my reactions and predictions to Game 6 and Game 7. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports, on Instagram, and the keyonmillions.co. Here is my merchandise shop for people who wants to purchase Keys to the Road apparel. Go to my profile on Millions, start you an account on Millions, go to my profile, which is the key, and go to my merchandise shop, and you can purchase you some Keys to the Road apparel. For all of the first time viewers that are going to see this, this is our brand new logo. So when you purchase a piece of apparel with Keys to the Road, or from Keys to the Road, you will see this logo on every piece of clothing that we make. And remember, one last thing. Here is my media feed so that you all can keep up with my sound bites and clips from previous shows and segments from previous shows. And remember, everybody, one last thing: the key is always on time.